Garamba is bordering with South Sudan, which has been facing serious conflict in the last number of years. Since 2013 it broke out, which we felt immediately. We had almost 1,000 people flood into the park. There's of course completely innocent refugees, hundreds of thousands of them, and then mixed in there's also rebels and weapons movement. In 2016, poachers from South Sudan killed 3 of our staff, 3 of our rangers, so it's a very serious problem. These movements of these armed groups that are coming in from sometimes 1,000 kilometers away to come and hunt elephants in the park, those people, how do we visualize where they are? How do we visualize how they get there?
We have Nat Geo Labs, and we really are a maker lab. And then we have an amazing network of fellows and explorers that include some of the best technologists. Some of the systems that we build are just because we see an organic need that doesn't exist. And then a lot are organically field-driven needs by our explorers.
It's been really, really amazing to work with the National Geographic Labs. So the Nat Geo Labs, there is an amazing engineering and mapping division within the labs where there was this really natural collaboration. And I think that for any explorer, the National Geographic community is very broad, so there are so many different expertise within National Geographic. But for me in particular, in my work, working with mapping and engineering was an obvious match. Technology is what puts us on a little bit of an asymmetric playing field. The better our situational awareness is, the better we're prepared to handle this. A lot of the poaching groups that operate in this area, they live in the bush. They know the bush very well. The rangers in the park are definitely using more technology today than they were in the past, with trackers, with collecting data electronically. That goes back to a control room, and that's where I think the GIS magic happens.
One of the things that we're working on is how do we help them to effectively visualize their data they're collecting, and oftentimes, there's a geographic component to it, so that means mapping.
The complexity of managing a park is difficult in itself. We could do a lot of GIS on a protected area in itself, but we'll always be reactive if we are only dealing with what's happening in the park at this moment.
We're working on new camera trapping systems that the first people working on them are our photographers, who of course create images that we all know, but they also capture animal behavior in ways that you can't imagine. And then what happens if we take those same systems, which we're building that are modular, and use them to catch poachers?
These are kind of like the first steps in really bringing that technological advantage to protected areas. And being able to set up alarm systems, being able to set up a 21st century version of anti-poaching. So for far too long we've been kind of operating in the 20th century, and now we can go further and we can get a new skill set into the field. I guess the bigger mission is that African Parks manages several protected areas in one of the most challenging parts of the world. You have these islands of stability, and you want to expand your influence to the point where that influence from one park is touching the influence of the other park, and that the spaces in between are being filled up by positivity as opposed to armed conflict, which has been the status quo for too long.